Moshi Moshi.
Hello,
I'm Zeb Ramsbotham,
and I'm Annie Ramsbotham.
and we're the Rambling Ramsbothams.
Our journey might be rambling, but we hope this podcast isn't.
And today I have breaking news.
I don't know if it's breaking news, but
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant.
well, let's hear it.
It's the teachers finally cut on the air conditioning in the
Wow.
teachers' room.
A new record.
I really think it's the first time I've ever seen AC on in the school. And so I was confused because I asked one of the teachers, I was like, so what's the,
Threshold.
they're like, what's the cutoff? And he told me that he thinks it's 28 degrees Celsius, which I think is like 84, 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm. It
But
was
last
definitely
week
that
it
hot.
was 28. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That I feel like last week.
And last year, like when we were here in August.
Oh, yeah, in August. There were some days that I was like sitting in the teacher's room sweating.
Well, maybe they lowered it to be friendly.
I really don't know.
But so far, we've been holding out here in the house.
Yeah, we still haven't. We told you guys we would update you, and we still haven't used AC in our house.
I'm sure you've been waiting to hear the news, but
I know it's a fascinating topic.
it's not too bad, honestly, once the sun goes on the other side of the apartment and like it's not directly coming in the windows. I can turn the fan on and I'm okay. I drink a lot of ice water now.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, I guess really 84 degrees is not that hot. Like it's hot. Like don't get me wrong,
only
84
feels-
degrees is toasty.
It feels
but
hotter because it's humid here, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of
I mean, back home in 84, we would definitely have had the AC on at our house, I feel like. But also electricity here is so expensive.
Yeah.
And also
Well-
I feel like because we haven't been using AC so much, I don't really buy into, when kids tell you they're like, I'm from Minnesota, that's why I'm not cold and I'm going to walk around
like
in shorts.
what you get used to.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you do kind of acclimate a little bit.
I think you do a little bit, but
Well,
I don't know.
enough about the weather.
Yeah. So it's hot. And also it feels like summer because not only the school, but I've noticed recently like the buses and train have been using AC. Probably about like a week ago, I was on a bus and I
Thank
realized
goodness.
like, oh, there's some AC in here. So it's going to spoil me at school. Although one of my coworkers did tell me that AC was on and he was standing there and I was like, so why'd they start using the AC? And that's when he told me it's like 28 degrees. And then he was standing there and he's like, to me, still feels hot. And it is true because they have it set to like,
I mean, yeah.
they have it like set to like 1 degree lower.
Just a little whisper of air to...
So it does feel nice, but it is kind of like, is this just a nice breeze from outside or is this actually air conditioning? But anyway,
We have an email to read.
we do have an email to read. And this one is from a friend back home named Tyler.
Yeah.
And he and I actually met through cycling, so it's fun. He just told us that he recently got married, which is really cool. So congratulations. And they're going to come to Japan for their honeymoon in October, which is the perfect month, like we discussed last episode,
Yeah,
to
favorite
visit
month.
anywhere in the world. October, why
Best
not?
month to exist.
Yeah, it really is. It's so nice. And he just asked for any recommendations or places to visit or things that they should try. And then he said, we've loved your podcast and listen to it weekly.
Which is very
And-
flattering.
Yeah, it is very flattering. And he said it'd be super cool to catch up with us. So, and it would be nice, yeah, if I sent him an email, of course. It's not like I don't think he's going to be listening to this and be like, wow, he's responding.
Yeah, we
emailed
also
him.
responded directly.
Yeah.
But he ended the email by saying, random, but have either of you watched the movie Belle? It's basically an anime Beauty and the Beast. I think it's on HBO Max. I'm not going to lie, it's a solid recommendation if you haven't already seen it. I've actually watched it twice and probably know every word to the English soundtrack.
Yeah, which we
It's a really
haven't.
good recommendation because, yeah,
It is a good recommendation. We haven't seen it. It's like an anime that I like know about because
I had never heard about it.
so I only know about it because I linked it in our little show notes. There's an article about a town bought a statue of the dragon from the movie and they put it in a museum because there's like a settlement within the town that apparently is where the protagonist, Suzu, it's the town that she's from in the movie. So
That's cool that it's
they
a
based
real
it on like a
place.
real place. And so that town bought a giant, like 6.5 foot tall statue of the dragon and they put it in their museum, so you can actually go to the town that
Wow.
she's from. So
Well,
we
so
could recommend that for their honeymoon.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you go to? It's on the Shikoku, the island of Shikoku.
Yeah.
Which I want to go sometime. But
So that's the only reason I know about the movie is because I read that article, and I was
Oh.
like, oh, that sounds kind of like interesting, but
well, when he said
And-
an anime Beauty and the Beast, I'm thinking like an animation, like kind of a
like a
spin-off
literal
of
recreation.
the Disney Beauty and the
Yeah.
Beast. And so I was thinking that kind of thing.
I think
but
it's like the
completely-
Japanese version of.
Well, it's completely different. I mean, it's like modern. I only watched the trailer,
yeah.
so
I think it's like a similar. I guess I think he's
Similar themes.
saying yeah, like this theme is similar, and
No, I was happy that it wasn't exactly the same. I thought it was cool that it was kind of like cityscape and has this like social media kind of themes around it. But the Japanese name is Ryu to Sobakasu no Hime, and Sobakasu is freckled. So it's
oh,
the dragon and the freckled princess,
that's interesting.
which is a cute name. Very
Yeah.
different than Belle.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely need to see it. So that's kind of like an interesting note for, like, obviously living in the land of anime. I feel like you think that anime would be, like, really accessible.
Mm.
And it's not that it's not accessible, but it's funny, it's English anime is really hard sometimes. So, for example...
I mean, I guess that makes sense because if you live here, you would assume you'd speak Japanese.
Yeah. So, for example, if you're into, watching... if you're into watching anime, you probably know about services like Crunchyroll and even like HBO Max because they have all the Studio Ghibli films in
Mhm.
America. So HBO Max, we actually can't get it here unless we use a VPN. And same thing for Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
So if
which
we want to watch
we do
anime
that.
in English, it's not like it's hard. I don't want to like complain and say like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
difficult.
You just
but,
need a subscription to those, and you need a VPN subscription, so it's kind
Yeah.
of confusing.
So it's a little more difficult because sometimes you'll think like, oh, I'll just hop on like Japan Netflix or
Mhm.
Japan Amazon Prime,
Mhm.
and they'll have the anime on there, but they won't have English subtitles.
Yeah.
Because I guess they assume if you're in Japan and you're using Japanese Netflix, you speak Japanese.
Yeah.
So sometimes the anime will be there, but no English.
Hmm. So you can
Um,
watch it in practice, but yeah.
That's true. But if you want to understand what's going on, yeah, a little difficult.
So that's Tyler's recommendation to us, which is a good one. And then what's your recommendation for him and his now wife, Erin?
I don't know. It's really tricky because I want to know more about like.
How long?
So I
they're
don't know
staying?
Aaron. Like I know Tyler's like, cyclist, and he's also really into. He makes really cool drawings. Like sometimes I'll see something online. I'm like, oh dang, like, he drew that. So stuff like
cool.
that. Like I guess like if he's interested in, anime and manga, I'd have to like think about what to recommend. But honestly, I was thinking about this. I think my top recommendations are always like try and stay in a ryokan, go to an onsen. I don't know, like the top culture hits.
Yeah, I mean, if
I would
it's your
definitely
first
recommend
time-
find like a really cool ryokan to stay in.
Yeah.
Eat a kaiseki dinner, go to an onsen.
Hmm. If they don't have a whole lot of time and it's their first time coming, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing just like the classic golden route, like Tokyo and Kyoto, and seeing the highlights. And if they do get to go to Kyoto, there's a bunch of history there, a bunch of art, and you can definitely stay in a ryokan and eat kaiseki. And then specifically for them, I know that Tyler rides bikes, and I'm pretty sure that Aaron hiked the whole Appalachian Trail.
Oh,
and
that's
so
cool.
if they want to hike, there's Mount Hiezan, is that what it is? It's outside of Kyoto. We
Oh, yeah.
made a YouTube video about it
Yeah.
with like where the trailhead is linked and everything. But we just did that as a half day. I guess it was most of the day, but that was from downtown Kyoto. We just got on a bus and went and
Yeah.
did a day hike. And then my favorite hike still is Miyajima, like off of Hiroshima.
Yeah, that would be like a pretty like top tip. Like,
Mhm.
oh, if you want to do something like really cool, like stay in a ryokan on Miyajima, and then you can do like a bunch of hiking, and then you can also see Miyajima, which is
Mhm.
really cool.
I think I liked that hike. Well, it was quiet and beautiful anyway, but I think because we stayed on a ryokan on the actual island, we didn't have to wait for the first ferry, and so we were the first ones on the trail, or I don't know,
Yeah.
there were other people on the trail, but we were some
Yeah, I
of
mean,
the
there's
first.
some old people out there like getting after
Yeah,
it
like the crack
early
of
in the
dawn.
morning. Yeah.
Just you and the deer, because there's deer out there on that island.
Yeah.
And I think that Torii Gate is finally finished being built.
So when we were there, it was under construction, and it's done. So now you can actually see it.
It's
So
one of the
we need to go back
wonders of
so we
Japan.
can see it. Yeah, I think it's one of the top 3 views.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Miyajima. But
I
so that
liked
would
that
be cool.
hike a lot.
Yeah, we'll have to. And when I emailed him, I was hoping he would respond, and then we can send him more detailed other recommendations. But also because
You
then it's kind of
can't go
confusing
wrong.
because it's like you could go like really cool places we've never been.
Mhm.
Like since you're coming in October, you could go like north to like Tohoku and see like Aomori.
Mhm.
And I think that there's some like apple stuff going on up there in October because they're like the apple country.
That
And also
was
up
where
there,
we-
the leaves might have changed already.
Yeah.
So
in the
you could go up
Aomori
there.
Prefecture, the leaves are supposed to be really beautiful. Because we tried to
Yeah.
go up there and go, like, do the leaf peeping kind of thing.
But they also live where we used to live back home, and the leaves are super beautiful
Mhm.
where we're from. So they might kind of be like,
I don't know.
I've
No one
been
gets
leafed
tired
out,
of seeing pretty things.
no, not get tired of it, but then it's kind of funny to like leave
Yeah.
somewhere where the leaves are super beautiful and then plan to see
It's true.
different super beautiful leaves. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah,
but yeah.
that's
I
true.
don't know. There's so many possibilities, but yeah, it's really exciting. And then
Another
speaking
news,
of tourism, a literal news article.
Zeb's been really into like reading the top news articles while it's slow
Well-
at work, and then he'll send me texts like, "Did you know I like learned this random fact?"
Well, it's just because, I don't know, I mean, like living in Japan, I'm pretty curious about what's happening in Japan.
Yeah.
And sometimes work is slow, especially in the morning. I usually get there, and even if I have a first period class, when I get to work in the morning, I have like quite a bit of time until first period actually starts.
Mm.
So usually I like can get there and kind of get situated at my desk, like look at my schedule, and usually I pull up the news like website and like just check it real quick. So there are always like interesting things to read, and since we live here now, I'm like always curious about what's happening in this country we live in. And one of the more interesting articles that I saw is about tourism. So people coming to Japan and different stats. So for example, in May of this year, Japan was back to 70% of tourism compared to pre-pandemic levels.
That kind of surprises me though, because I thought that there was such a backlog of people wanting to take trips. I would have thought it would be at least equal or even more than pre-pandemic levels, because it's
Yeah,
like
so-
people want what they can't have, and
Yeah.
they couldn't come here, and now everybody wants
I
to
guess
all of a sudden.
The issue now is it's like pretty expensive to travel
I
right
mean,
now.
Yeah.
Just plane tickets are increasing. And then also I think this article is pointing out that there's still like a lot of friction between China, like mainland China, and Japan. And so I think right now...
That was one of the largest, if not the
Yeah.
largest.
And I think right now they
tourist
have like
group.
suspended visas. And so I think like the Chinese numbers of tourists coming over is super low. But the top 3 countries are South Korea, Taiwan, and then the United States. And it's interesting because the article is trying to point out that although tourism is rebounding, it's actually rebounded like back to peak, if not higher than peak in some places. And then other places, it's like lagging behind. So, for example, Tokyo had like more nights booked than pre-pandemic levels. And then they directly pointed out Ishikawa, where we live, and Kyoto.
Are we booming?
We're back to 90%.
Look at us. Everybody wants to come to
Yeah, so it's interesting
Ishikawa.
because I guess there's like a lot you can read from it. But if we're
Yeah.
at 70% of tourism, but we're like our prefecture's back to 90%, it means I guess like a lot of those people are probably returning to Japan and they want to go somewhere new, so they've picked like
maybe.
Ishikawa. I don't really know. And then Tokyo has like more, they're like seeing a 20% increase. So I think it's kind of saying that people are staying in Tokyo longer. And I think in general, people are staying in Japan longer. So there was like some interesting stuff about nights booked versus actual people. So I think it's kind of like people are coming to Japan and they're staying longer. But I don't know, it's just kind of interesting because
Yeah.
we definitely noticed that, I mean, we see like a lot of people that look like us in Ishikawa.
Yeah.
So a lot of other foreigners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is very interesting. I'm always curious about like what's happening in Japan. But
Yeah, and sometimes when our friends come over, they're like, oh, well, now that you know everything, you can show us around. And I'm always like, listen, I know so little. Like, we've been here almost
Yeah.
a year, and sometimes I'm like, wow, have I learned anything? Which I know is not the case, but my Japanese skills are still, they're much better. But when you start from zero, like, beginner is still, if you double your knowledge from zero, it's still very little, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So we started to take Japanese classes again in town.
So this is news.
To improve ourselves.
Yeah, back to our mundane life.
Oh, yeah.
Hot news from us
Yeah.
is, we're taking a Japanese class.
We were doing the online tutoring for a while, and then our tutor was taking a break, so we were doing self-study and some very convenient and cheap local classes, kind of like volunteer classes, but those were more conversation-based, and I started to really lack in the grammar.
Those classes, and they were super nice, but they were like prime time Saturday morning.
Right.
Like if you're trying to go on like a bike ride or really like, I just wish, they were like super early. I wish the class would start at like 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you could just like do it and then keep on with your day.
Mm-hmm.
But then the time it was like what, 10:30?
Yeah, it would be like 10 to noon, and so then it was like, well, I guess I'll ride in the afternoon. Anyway, that's very mundane. But
yeah, a little nitpicky.
So now we're paying slightly more, but it's a much smaller class, and it's very focused on, like, we follow a textbook and there's a grammar structure.
Yeah, it feels more like a
homework.
real classroom.
Yeah.
Like sitting in there and then, having like homework. I kind of did get the student feel again. I was like, oh.
They're still very cheap. So I guess for
affordable.
Reference, we paid 5,000 yen each, which is less than $50, probably like $40. And that's for one term, and one term is twice a week for 4 weeks or 5 weeks.
And it's an hour and a half each class. So 3 hours a week of like really good class. So 12 hours of class, essentially, over the course of 4 weeks.
Really cheap, I feel like, for a class size of 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, it's like $3 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It must be subsidized.
It has to be.
It is done by the International Center in Kanazawa, so I feel like it's probably...
Maybe that's like a branch of a national...
Or like some kind of, I don't know what the word is, like outreach. It's probably kind of like...
we do have a different
please help
teacher.
the foreigners.
Yeah. There's like 3 or 4 teachers that rotate through, so maybe it is like a volunteer-based program.
Yeah, maybe they get some kind of like tax write-off or something for donating some of their time.
But I'm very appreciative because I already feel like it's helping, because I was in actually the same program when we first moved here, but it was the very, very beginner, and it was a little too beginner, if I can say that, because we were practicing how to read hiragana and katakana, and that was like one of the only things I knew how to do.
Yeah.
So that was like a little too relaxed. And so the last time when we talked, we were talking about how we tested into a level, and we only made it to level 2, but it's I think it's exactly where we need to be, because
I think so.
A good mix of...
Because it's true. After the first day, the teacher asked, she was like, oh, is this too easy? And it was nice because some parts did feel easy. Some parts I was like, oh, I know what this is. Like, I've already studied this, and I felt good. But it was still good
review.
And then some parts I was kind of like, whoa,
yeah.
this is I'm not ready.
That was
but
good.
yeah,
we
it was
were
nice.
looking like bad students, though, because on the very second day, we came back and we both had messed up the homework. You had forgotten, or you had done the wrong sheet.
No, I did the right sheet, but then I pretty much I did one of like 4 of the right sheets. So I did like 25% of the homework.
I did only one of the pages. I didn't realize we had to do a different page. So yeah, we both came over like, oh, yeah, we're like the dunces over here. But
I felt good. She asked questions. I was able to answer them. I think I knew what was going on. So I faked my way.
So it's us in the class, and then there's 2 other JET participants.
ALTs.
Yeah, which is cool. They teach in Kanazawa. I don't know like where they teach, but they both teach in the city. And then there's another girl who's the same age as one of my younger sisters. She's here on a high school exchange program.
Yeah, which is wild.
I'm so impressed. I would never think to or want to do that at 15. I think I would want to do that, but get too scared.
Yeah, I think that when I was in high school, I was, had a huge crush on Japan. And I think that I thought about it, but it seemed like too daunting or too difficult to do, or it was something I would think about. But then also it's kind of like, it is interesting because her parents must be fairly cool. Because I feel like as a kid...
It's through the Rotary Club,
yeah,
which is a national... I didn't
feel like as a kid, if you mention that to your parents, not that my parents aren't cool, but I feel like if you mention it to your parents, then
Yeah, they might get anxious or.
They might get anxious, but I feel like to a certain extent they kind of have to like take the ball and like maybe look into some programs and then make some suggestions to help you keep the motivation going.
Right.
Because like you were saying as a kid, like it's something I thought about and I probably like mentioned, but then, you know, I would just change my mind.
Well, and you have to trust people too, because she's a very independent young adult, but she's still a kid. I mean, me at 15, I didn't know what was going on. And she's staying with host families. You rotate different host families in this program she's in.
She said every month.
Yeah, which is...
It was a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of change, and it's also a lot of families. So, like, if you don't like a family, then great, you're only with them for a month. But it is a lot of, like...
But it's cool, because that's 12, I guess approximately 12 families that you get to meet, which is pretty neat. I mean... Especially if they have kids, and then you can make friends, and then...
I'm just thinking of, like, her parents have to be willing to, you know, like, trust 12 different families. Like, you can't just get in with one family and then be like, oh, phew, like, they seem like decent people. You have to do that every month. But
yeah,
I'm sure it's
that
fine.
There's, like, a lot of vetting going on, and
It seems very cool. I was very impressed. I was like, you're 15?
Yeah.
And look at you go.
And then you told her she looked old.
I know, I said she looked older than that. I don't know, I hope she didn't take it wrong.
It's the classic, like, every guy learns that, like, never ask a woman how old she is.
Oh, I think it's
tell
okay.
Tell her that she looks old.
When you're a kid, it's cool.
To
and
look
then
older?
I think, yeah, all the way up through, I think, like, college even. Like, before you turn, I don't know, when I was in college, like, before I turned 21, I guess, and people were like,
I mean, you don't want to
you're
look
just
like a
like
child,
an underclass, or, you know, what's it called, like, undergraduate? Anyway, and then I'd be like, yeah, I'm mature, you know, it makes you feel like good, kind of in a way. It's, I think, when you get to be an adult, you don't want to look old.
You just want to stop aging. Yeah.
Like, probably now, I'm 27, if people were like, oh, I thought you were like 35, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, like, the whole class situation, because now it means, at least for me, I go into town 4 nights a week now. Big city person.
Yeah. We're trying to ride our bikes into town every day because it saves us 360 yen each way.
Yeah, round
and
trips.
each person. That's like
720 yen.
Which is 1440 yen a day if we both ride to and from town.
Yeah.
So
it kind of adds up. I mean, so the class is like really cheap, but the transportation kind of adds up.
So
and
it's
then
a 30-minute bike ride, but it's pretty much all flat, and it's on a bike path almost all the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to... I really enjoy the bike path. There's only sometimes where I'm, like, short on time, and I'm like,
Or right now when we're coming back and the sun started to set and it's a little bit buggy. Although now it's significantly better than it was, like, back in spring. Sometimes in spring you would ride and it would sound like it was raining.
Yeah.
Because there were so many bugs, like, smacking your helmet. And, that was...
I had to put a mask on because they were, like, flying in my face too much. It's gross.
Yeah. So, that's what we're doing. And, of course, I'm still teaching the night classes. So I'm over there, Tuesday through Friday now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is...
Maybe I'll put a picture up on our Instagram of our picnic that we had.
Oh, yeah.
After our last class.
Yeah, so that's, like, one reason it's, like, nice. We're trying to save money right now, so we probably shouldn't spend a lot of money in the city, but also now there are, like, more opportunities, I don't know, to, like, get dinner or something, like, after class one night or something like that, so.
Yeah, I'm still on my little ice cream kick, trying to eat all the ice cream places around, but they all close. I don't know why, but they close at, like, 5 or earlier, so we have to do pre-class ice cream, which we can't usually work out.
Yeah, I can't, because I'm off work at 4:15 and the class starts at 5.
Yeah, Zeb has
and if
to,
I ride my bike there, it's like I'm getting there at like 4:50. So.
I did get to try an ice cream this past weekend. I did a ride up Mount Io, up Iozen, which is a mountain that is like outside of, well, it's in Kanazawa City, but the top of it actually is the border between Nanto in Toyama Prefecture and Kanazawa in Ishikawa Prefecture. So I guess it's technically in both sides, but I rode up from Kanazawa.
It's like Fuji's in like 3 prefectures, but there's one prefecture that's always like, we're the home to Mount Fuji. Right. They're like really proud about it.
Well, this is like significantly, I mean, this is not a very big mountain, but
but it's just funny.
It's a very scenic climb. And then at the end, I finished, so I don't know if we talked about this before, but Uchinada, I don't know who calls it this, but some people call
I think we did mention this.
The Milk Kingdom.
Yeah, the Milk Kingdom.
You can Google Uchinada Milk Kingdom, but it's because almost half the milk that's produced in this whole prefecture is produced in Uchinada,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of farmland and fields.
But also that's kind of funny because, like, I don't know. It's a funny statistic.
It is because
I feel like
also
that
thought
either
that.
means that really there's not a lot of milk being, because there are only like 30 cows out there.
I know, I thought
so
the
it's either
same
there's
thing.
really not much milk being made in Ishikawa, because I think most of it comes from Hokkaido for all of Japan.
Yeah.
Hokkaido is like the dairy capital of Japan.
Yeah. And so Ishikawa just probably doesn't produce that much milk.
Yeah, there's probably like one farm in Uchinada, and then there's probably like another farm like somewhere else. So it's
but
like
it's
two
a nice
farms.
sounding statistic. Like, out of all the milk that we produce here.
It's like the ice cream thing.
Yeah.
Like, we eat the most ice cream in all of Japan.
It's like if I had a cherry tree in our in our yard back in North Carolina, I could be like, I produce 10% of all the cherries in North Carolina. But anyway, so
yeah.
the farm, it's Hori Farm, but then the ice cream place is called Yume Milk.
Famous
which is
milk.
Like dream. Also, it's
Oh,
so
dream.
it's the kanji for dream. That also confused
okay.
me because Yume is also.
I haven't seen the kanji, so I always just assumed when I heard it, like the Yume Milk Kingdom and
Well,
stuff,
maybe
I was like,
they
it
might-
must just be the famous milk kingdom.
They might do that on purpose because Yume sounds like famous and dream, but
Yeah.
they have a vending machine that the owner made.
Also, oh, sorry. I learned the other day that Yume it's kind of like Nozumi. It's both mouse and rat. Yume is both dream and nightmare.
Oh, really?
It depends on the context around it. So if
Oh.
you say you had like a bad Yume, like a bad dream, they know that you mean nightmare.
That makes sense.
And then if you say you had a good dream, they mean like, oh, it was like a normal dream.
Because a nightmare is a dream.
Yeah, it's just a bad one.
Interesting.
So same word, but the context around it, you understand. Like, was it a dream or
Well,
was it a nightmare?
this was
Sorry.
a great dream of mine to find out that there's unlimited ice cream. Or not, well, it is unlimited.
Where's the
but-
limit?
So the shop closes at 5, but because they have this outdoor vending machine, you can go anytime, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, but how many? They only sold what? It was like 15 ice creams.
When
or
you
something?
open, so it's like an American-sized refrigerator, but it's all one freezer. And you open the door like you would a refrigerator, and inside there's like 3x4 kind of grid of boxes, and each box has a little coin slot and one ice cream inside the box. And you insert, it doesn't give any change, and it only takes 100 yen coins. But if you have 4 100 yen coins, you can get an ice cream. And you just slide them in and press the lever, and then the latch pops open, and you can pull out the ice cream. It's very clever
That's
because
cool.
they couldn't have a vending machine. I mean, I know they make frozen vending machines, but I guess they're rare. I haven't really seen one. So.
That's true.
And I don't know that you could stock it with your own stuff. So he just made it. Whoever the owner is made it themselves.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I guess the only downside is it does mean, like, you know, they probably stock it, you know, right when they're closing at 5. And then if you're not one of the first 15 people that happens to stop by the vending machine, there's not going to be
Well, it is in like
any ice cream in there.
rural Ishikawa, so
Yeah.
there was still several ice creams left when I got there. But yeah, that is a risk, I guess, because each one only holds one.
Yeah.
And
That's
they
cool.
also they only had plain flavor in the vending machine.
Was it like just milk flavor?
It was vanilla, but it was really, really mild. I was kind of surprised.
When you said plain, I wasn't sure if you meant like vanilla, which I feel like most people say is like
maybe-
plain ice cream, or I
maybe
wonder if
it
it was
was.
like milk.
It might have just been milk.
Yeah, like truly, like just plain.
Yeah, maybe that's why it tasted so plain. It was
Maybe,
good,
yeah.
but it was just very simple, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it was just milk flavor.
Yeah, and then you got to meet some animals
Yes, a
afterwards.
real cow. I told
And a
her
real
thank you.
pony.
Yeah, the pony was really cute. He kept like poking his head up trying to get me to pet him more.
Yeah. Speaking
But-
of animals.
Yeah. You saw some fun animals.
Yeah, I did. Which Annie has
Zeb
now
was
seen one
very
of these.
proud.
I was very proud, but now Annie's seen one of them.
Yeah.
So on a bike ride last week, I saw right in a row a weasel and then a badger.
Very cool.
And it shocked me so much that I had to Google. I was like,
Why did it shock you so much?
Well, I didn't know that Japan had badgers, I guess.
Oh.
And also, I've never seen a badger in real life before.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So when I saw it, I thought it was like a really weird looking tanuki.
Yeah.
But then I kept thinking about the rest of the ride. And I was like, it had to be a badger.
Yeah.
But then I was telling myself, you know, I was kind of like, Japan doesn't have badgers. Like,
You saw a yokai.
yes. Well, I
Little
knew
mythical
I
beast.
knew it was an animal. Yeah, so it was just caught me off guard.
I've seen a badger
And-
now.
Yeah, and I
Not
got to see
to
one.
steal your thunder, but
Yeah, I saw it first, though.
yeah.
And I saw a weasel the same day.
I still haven't seen a weasel.
So the weasel was really funny because I've actually seen.
How big was it?
I
Because the
mean,
badger is like a size of a raccoon.
Yeah, the
which-
weasel was, squirrel sized.
Oh,
It
that's
was
pretty small.
Yeah. Because I think I looked it up because then I was like, does Japan have weasels? I was like, what did I see out
What
there?
was that?
And it's the same road. We'll have to tell the story sometime. Same road we thought we saw a wolf,
Oh yeah.
which makes us sound like crazy people, but that's a real story. There was one day we saw this animal and it spooked both of us. But yeah, so I saw the little weasel thing. So it's the same road. So I'm like, that road is the wildlife
cursed.
kingdom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw the little weasel thing, and I've seen something similar in North Carolina. I think in North Carolina is like a mink that we
Oh.
have. They're like really rare.
I've never seen that.
But I saw the Japanese weasel. Unfortunately, it's not. Fortunately for the weasel, it's not rare or anything.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like an
Well, that's
animal of
good.
least concern. Like no
Okay.
one's really worried about it, and like he's not going anywhere.
Well, that's good. I like when animals are
Yeah.
doing well.
Yeah, he's just hard to see, I guess. He was very red.
Oh.
His fur was like a very like auburn, maybe is the color. Like
That's
a
different
nice...
than what I imagined in my head. The
Yeah,
badger
because I had
was...
to Google him, and then that's when I also found out that Japan has a mink,
Oh, okay.
which apparently when a weasel turns 100 years old, he transforms into a mink.
Are you joking?
No? No, that's real Japanese lore. That's not how
Okay.
it works, but it's not
I
how it
was
works in
like,
the real world.
I don't think... Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I'm going to have to pop your bubble again.
Yeah, no, that's some Japanese lore,
Okay.
which leads me to believe that a mink is just a big weasel.
Right?
I mean, I don't know anything about minks, but
Oh.
yeah.
Well, you said that there was some Japanese phrases around
Yeah,
weasels.
so I'm going to read this little bit because this cracked me up.
I hope
So,
my younger sisters are listening.
yeah, so this is a good one. So the Japanese weasel has been embedded in everyday Japanese vernacular. In Japanese, Itachi-goko, Itachi is weasel, so Itachi-goko, or weasel play, defines the vicious cycle of repeating the same message. So I guess that's kind of like if you keep warning someone about something, or if you're, I don't really know, like, I was trying to think about when you would use that. Like, oh, Itachi-goko.
Like a broken record.
Yeah, I
like
guess
a phrase
so.
in English.
Yeah. Then,
Okay, but the second phrase I think is really funny.
the scent of their excreted musk gives rise to the saying, Itachi no saigo pe, which translates to the weasel's final fart, which is used to describe the final words of an unpopular speaker.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of...
That's a good little phrase. An individual who acts with bravado only when they have no formidable opponent.
can also be labeled as Itachi.
Yeah, so I guess it's
weasel.
like we have a similar thing with slang in English, like calling someone a weasel, like, oh, they really weaseled their way out of that. So like a speaker who nobody really likes, if they're like,
Well, I was thinking those two things as separate.
oh,
So
okay.
Itachi no saigo pe is the weasel's final fart. It's like the final words of an unpopular speaker. So like if you really don't like a politician and then they like finish a speech, you can be like, oh, thank God. You know, like it's finally over. Like that
The
was the
weasel's
weasel's
final
final fart.
fart.
Like he's done. Like get him out of here. Versus you can also just call someone Itachi or weasel, which
Wow.
is someone who acts like really brave, but they're not. And then I really like the closing sentence was, despite the everyday use of these phrases, they do not reflect the true temperament of Japanese weasels.
Yeah, weasels are good.
Yeah, like did a weasel
boys
write this?
and girls?
Like, they're
Yeah.
like,
A weasel was like,
Yeah, like-
well, actually,
actually, we're really
we're
smart.
actually quite good.
Yeah, so we saw
Well.
that, and then just fun fact, there's a weasel yokai, which is called the Kamaitachi, which is apparently originally it was not represented by a weasel, but now it's frequently represented by a weasel with like sickle claws,
Whoa.
and it represents a sharp cutting wind.
Why? I wonder why it changed to a weasel.
I don't know, but they said that like historically it didn't really have like a shape like associated with it. But then at some point, like in the mid 1800s, people started like characterizing it as like a weasel, kind of in
Wow.
this like cyclone with these like little sickle claws, and he like
That
really
sounds scary.
whips around and like. And then that anime I told you about today, Ganba,
Oh yeah.
Ganba's Adventure.
This is another anime. So admittedly, I watch very little anime, but now I'm gonna have to start with.
Well, it's from the 70s, so it's pretty old, pretty
It's
dated.
about a mouse, right?
Yeah, but it's in the Japan really likes their lists of top 100 things. In the list of top 100 anime, this one's been in like the top 20 before, beating out like other really popular anime. But it's from the 70s, and it's about this mouse that helps this other mouse defend the Island of Dreams.
Oh, so cute.
And apparently the villain is a weasel.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not very nice.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know what weasels are like, but according to this article, possibly written by a weasel, they're very pleasant.
Cool. Yeah. So I don't know. It was an interesting week in wildlife out there.
Yeah, luckily I haven't seen anything like scary. So
we see like snakes in the road. I told someone that.
But I haven't seen anything that. Okay, admittedly, have you ever thought about how when we lived in Western North Carolina, both of us had grown up there, and so we knew all the different things that were dangerous? Here, I was thinking about that. I saw a snake, and I was like, that doesn't look venomous. And then I was like, would I even know what a venomous snake here looks like? I mean, I would look for the same kind of wide head that you see on a rattlesnake and a copperhead back home.
Yeah, but the ones here are vipers, aren't they?
Even
the vipers
scarier.
have the same head
I don't
shape.
know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the snakes.
I need to look up like
the snakes here are much more dangerous than the snakes
oh my
back
gosh,
home.
like the mamushi.
Yeah,
when
that's
you go
the
hiking,
one that's like a viper.
Yeah,
or like
so
a pit viper or
if
something.
Tyler and Aaron are still listening to this and they're trying to go hiking, you gotta watch out for the mamushi.
Yeah.
Because it'll get you.
Yeah,
They have signs
potentially.
all over the place.
I think they are the
specifically in
one
Kyoto.
part of Japanese wildlife that is pretty spooky to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, snakes are just hard to see, and
Well, because rattlesnakes and copperheads, if you get bit, it's painful and bad, but it's like
it's probably not going to kill you.
It kills the tissue and stuff. It
Mhm.
doesn't get in your. I mean, it gets in your blood, but it's more of a localized.
Yeah, I
you
think
gotta-
this one's like a true like
Yeah.
if you get bit, like you like really need to see somebody.
Scary.
you need to talk to somebody
You
about
gotta
that.
get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I need
so-
like a 101, like how to survive in Japan. I don't even know what, you know how we have poison ivy and stuff and back home? Don't know what that's like here. So
That's true. I have thought about that. If they have poison ivy, I know they have like nettle and stuff like that. They have like some
maybe I
stinging
should just
things.
keep living in ignorance, but I do want to go camping while we're here, and I don't want to just like tromp into the woods like
Yeah.
somebody we're with is like, that girl just walked right into a patch of stinging nettle. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
I think we're moderately clever people, so I think we'll figure it out. But yeah, that's we do see a lot of snakes on the road sunbathing this time of the year, like on bike
Yeah.
rides. And I told someone that because they had asked me if I'd seen a snake in Japan, and I was like, yeah, I
Really?
see them all the time,
Hmm.
and they were like shocked.
Really?
Like where are you seeing snakes?
Is it England that doesn't have snakes?
Ireland? Because the
This
Piper
is
came
really
through
dumb,
and piped
but-
them all off with his
Yeah.
little like.
It's probably an embarrassing fact that I should know. But yeah, I always thought that was interesting because I guess they.
Did you know? Do you want to know another?
Yeah,
fun
tell
fact?
me.
Until like the 1500s, Japan had no cats.
No cats?
No cats. No, sorry, this is until 1500 years ago, not 1500. 1500 years ago, Japan had no cats.
Wow, because I was going to say they could easily have no snakes like the other thing going on with the island. I guess that's why they don't have any snakes in possibly England or wherever it is.
Pretty
But
sure
I
it's
was always
Ireland,
like,
but
I was always like, that's why they don't have snakes, because they're on an island. But here we are on an island, and snakes made it over, I guess, before the land separated.
well, they
were
swam.
like, oh, yeah.
don't
Okay,
know.
so why were there no cats, and how did they come?
Because they just, I mean, there just wasn't a cat species that had like evolved and.
And then
Made
did
it
they
over to
get
Japan?
brought over as pets?
So the thing that I was reading, because I made sometimes I have to make these things where we do like listening tests for the students where like
Mhm.
I'll read stuff and then the student will listen for the missing word in the sentence and fill it in.
Mm-hmm.
And one time I literally made one about how I get to my night class, and I talked about like taking the bus, and the teacher liked that one. And so the next one, I feel like for me it's easier to do a story because the
Mhm.
example the teacher gave me was just literally just like unrelated sentences.
Oh,
And
that
I
would
was
be
like,
hard to listen to.
Yeah, I was like, that's like way harder. So I just made this like really long story about cats. And one of the things was cats coming to Japan.
Mm.
And I think that cats and Buddhism came to Japan at the same time.
Wow.
Because when they were bringing over sacred texts to like teach the Japanese people about Buddhism,
Mm-hmm.
the texts were getting eaten by mice. So apparently it was very common to, like, wherever you kept your sacred papers, you also had cats, because
Oh
the
my
cats
goodness.
would eat all the mice that were
They're,
trying to eat the papers.
very diligent librarians.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, I really love mice and rats, so it's not
Yeah.
very nice, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, so that was the story I read, is that, well, that's like one of the theories. So someone said one of the theories about how cats came to Japan was
Wow.
via Buddhism. So
Hmm.
they came over in the same boat as the sacred scrolls.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of students and making things for your students, I guess it's semi-related, but you got chosen to be a judge for a student contest.
Yeah, this is like a teaching duty, since this is a slightly Jet ALT themed podcast, since
When we
that's what
stay
I do
on
here.
track.
Not just about our mundane lives. You can learn all kinds of things, like the inner workings of an assistant language teacher. So yeah, there's like a debate contest coming up, and I don't know. I mean, it was like a volunteer opportunity, and it's just one of those things that, like, I guess because I'm here, feel somewhat not obligated, but I don't know, like, I guess give back, you know?
I mean,
Like,
that's very
they were
nice.
looking
Yeah,
for
you should.
volunteers, and I thought, well, I'll volunteer.
So the people that are in the debate contest, are they high schoolers from all high schools?
I mean, they must be high schoolers from, like, anywhere. It's like the Ishikawa regional
okay.
debate contest, which is really funny because this is a pretty big contrast to my high school experience. But Ishikawa is like one of the top 3 prefectures for high school high school English education.
Oh, wow.
So there's some, like, national test that occasionally they give high schoolers where there's some level of fluency that they're trying to reach by the time you finish high school. And I guess it's kind of like in Japan, we have the JLPT, which is like the Japanese language proficiency test. There's some version of that for English that they administer to students to kind of gauge, like, okay, like, nationally, how are we doing in schools with students? And it's something like 65% of the high school students in Ishikawa score a passing grade, which is like the highest
Wow.
in the country. It's like us, and then
That's
Tokyo, and then there's like
impressive.
one other prefecture that we're all like around the same percentage.
That over half of the students in this prefecture are getting, like, top grades. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, but see, that's another thing. I don't know how it's scored.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what
Well, so what's this
level of proficiency.
like, debate
Anyway,
about
yeah,
and
this
everything?
is not exactly related to that, but it'll be interesting because apparently a lot of high schoolers in this prefecture speak pretty good English. So there's this debate contest coming up, and we got like an email, and they mentioned interest in volunteers to help judge it, and so I signed up. But that was like 2 months ago, and so I thought that I must have just not been selected. And then one of my teachers came to me with a bunch of paperwork, and they're like, all right, like, here's your paperwork so you can fill out that you're going on a business trip, and you, like, can take comp time. And so I was like,
Cool.
oh, I guess I got accepted.
Field trip.
So one Saturday I'll go for a half day to learn how to judge, and then
Hmm.
another Saturday I'll go, and it's like an all-day thing. And
Wow.
the paper had how many people are participating, and it was a lot. Like, there are a lot
That's
of kids
cool.
doing it.
I might
and
want to
then,
come watch it,
I mean,
depending
you can.
on how interesting it is.
Yeah.
But the topic,
Yeah, that was the thing. The one paper, then it had the topic, and I was reading the paper, and I was like, oh, that's what they're debating? The topic is if Japan should legalize gestational surrogacy.
which is the kind of surrogacy where, like, a fertilized egg gets, I'm sure there's a kinder word than hosted, but, like,
Put into
yeah, so the
transplanted.
surrogate mother is carrying a baby that she is not part
Yeah,
of.
she doesn't share genetic material
Yeah.
with the child.
So I think that would be the, like, most black and white one. Like, if you're okay with surrogacy, then you could have the baby, and then there would be no claim
I
later
think so,
to
but
be
I
like,
guess
oh,
if
this
you're
is my
in
child.
a pretty traditional setting,
Well, then I
maybe
looked
they
it up,
think of that as
and
like pretty like.
I looked up in Japan, it's, like, very unheard of to be a surrogate mother, like, which
Well, I could see that
because
yeah.
the bloodline is so important, and
Oh,
also,
yeah.
but
And
it doesn't
blood
make
types
sense
and
because
stuff.
if it's a fertilized egg, it wouldn't have any of the surrogate mothers, like blood or genetic material.
That's
or
not
anything.
your body, you know.
But I was reading about a very like high case where I don't remember her name, but it was a famous woman in Japan who was married to, I think, a pro wrestler. But they were having trouble having a second kid, and she decided to go to the U.S. to hire a U.S. surrogate mother. And the babies, she had twin boys, and they were born in the U.S., and she had to really fight for those babies
to get
have
citizenship?
Yeah, even though they were completely genetically her and her husband's babies, they had been born to, like, in the law's eyes at the time, to an American mother in America.
Yeah, because that's fascinating, because the idea is Japanese blood gets Japanese citizenship.
And it was Japanese
blood. It was Japanese blood.
But they were like, oh, but it was born to, like, a different mother. And she actually won, so the babies...
that's pretty fascinating.
And it was... Yeah, maybe you'll hear about this in the debate. But yeah, it's, like, very frowned upon. I didn't realize it was so frowned upon in Japan. And also just in general, out of wedlock babies are frowned upon.
Yeah,
and
which
so
you
if
think they would get on board with, since they're always complaining about their, like, the decline of, like, women having children.
Yeah, the population are declining. And so many women want to, like, I did read kind of a sad statistic about how Japan has the highest infertility treatment rates, but the lowest success, because so many women are trying to get fertility treatments, but they're waiting very long. And so they're much older mothers, so they just naturally have less success. But so many women are wanting to have babies when they're older, but Japan's like, well, we can't have surrogates for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's like a topic, I've never really thought anything about, and I really don't know much about, because the only time I ever hear about it is, like, you know, like same-sex couples and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm excited, kind of, like, a little bit.
Interested, yeah, at least.
I'm interested, yeah. It'll be kind of something that, I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about the fact that they were going to have some topic that they had to debate. And so when
I just thought they were going to be, like, chatting up there.
I knew it was like a debate contest, but I just thought I don't know. I thought it would be something a little more simple. So when I saw the topic, I was like, oh wow, that's like...
Yeah, that is actually a tricky topic.
Like, because you have to do a lot of research.
Right.
Like, you really...
And that's a lot of complicated English words. I don't know.
That's another thing I was thinking about. Like, that's going to be hard to
even the word gestational,
debate.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, like in surrogacy, especially for a Japanese person.
Yeah.
Both those words, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of R and L going on in there.
Well.
Anyway, it'll be fascinating.
Put some updates on that.
Yeah.
I guess as far as, like, mundane life updates, there's one more left.
This is more breaking news.
We have a mattress.
I know.
Which is actually a really big deal for me, because my back was starting to really bother me. But it made me think about... So we ended up getting one of those mattresses that you order online, and it comes to you in a box, and you unroll it.
Yeah, which, honestly, I think we should have gotten one a lot sooner when we moved to Japan.
Yeah, I had no idea how cheap it was.
Well, I think we held out because we had literally just bought, like...
A couch.
A pretty nice mattress in the U.S.
Yeah.
So before we really thought about moving to Japan, we had, like, upgraded, like, something nice for ourselves. We got ourselves, like, a queen-size bed and, like, a nice memory foam mattress. And then probably, like, 10 months after we bought that, we moved here to Japan. So I wasn't bitter, but I think there was part of me that was like, we just bought, like, a nice mattress. Yeah. Like, my predecessor left a futon. Like, we can use it. Like, it'll be fine.
And it was fine for a while.
And it is fine.
So I was looking up futon, and fu means cloth and ton means group. So, like, a group of cloth. But I hadn't really thought about this.
Like a little rat nesting in a...
Yeah, just gathering up my cloths and just... Anyway, so if you sleep on a futon in a traditional sense, which is where this came from, you would unfold or roll out a futon on a tatami floor, and you would sleep on that, and then when you were done, you'd roll it back up. And I didn't really think about this, but under the futon in that instance, the tatami mat is not a hard floor.
It's like a little bit springy.
Yeah, because it's got the woven material, and then under the woven material is not just concrete or something. And so it's far more comfortable to sleep in a traditional home on a futon. I think,
though, that's, like, overselling tatami's springiness a little bit. I think it is more comfortable, but I don't know if it's, like... It's not like you have, like, a memory foam.
No, it's not, but it is more, like, dampening. Yeah. I don't know, it's just... I hadn't really thought about that, and because we have this futon frame, well, and we also have hardwood floors, but we were just sleeping on a hard floor, and I don't know if that was kind of contributing to it being very, very stiff instead of just
maybe
regular stiff. But
we also didn't buy this futon, so we don't know, like,
yeah.
not the history of the futon, but we don't know, like, did he buy the, like, firm futon or did he buy, you know, it's definitely less soft than almost any of the ryokan futons we've ever slept on, even discounting tatami mat floor. Futons and ryokans are usually a little more
and
plush.
If you're an American listening to this, maybe other Western countries, but for example, my parents' mattress is a futon, but it's an American futon, and so it's not like it's mega not thick
Asian futon.
No.
It's really a mattress.
The futon that we have here in Japan is like 3 inches, and then on top of it is a second, very small, almost like the thickness of a down comforter that you put on top of that 3-inch padding. And that's what you sleep on. You put like a sheet.
Yeah. And often on like Japan Amazon, a futon is sold as a set of 3 things. It's like the hard thing that Annie was just talking about, the slightly softer thing she was talking about, and then also kind of like a big comforter type thing that you sleep under. So yeah, it's very different than. And
they are very comfortable, but yeah, just the one that we had was not the best quality, and so we spent only $100 and got a very small but very nice.
Yeah, we cheaped out. We got the semi-double. Yeah, we didn't even get the double.
It's pretty cozy.
Yeah, it's a little. Thankfully, we're married, though. So.
Thankfully, Zeb sleeps on his side, so.
I'm a bit of a side sleeper.
He can sleep on 1/3, and I'll take up the other 2/3 like a little starfish.
Yeah, except I go to bed first, so I can go in there and claim my space.
Well, I was curious, like, how many people still sleep on a futon here, like in modern Japan, and I couldn't really find. I guess that would be a hard statistic to find, but one article said 40%, and another article just said most, which is, I don't know what that means.
And those are vastly different.
Yeah,
40% is not most, and
I'm thinking, well, they said most houses have one, and that seems like a completely different thing to me, because like you would have one, and then maybe it's for guests, or like maybe the kids sleep on it, but you sleep on a mattress.
Or it's just like you had one at one point in your life and you never threw it away, and now you've just been dragging it around, like moving from house to house. So
I don't think people certainly still do have futon, but it's not like maybe what you would believe from like anime and stuff, where like everyone has a futon. Like no one has mattresses in Japan. Like my friends were like, "Oh, you have a futon?" That like my Japanese friends, they're like, "That's so interesting." Like why?
So the reason that I started thinking about it too is in the Japanese class, the teacher randomly asked like, who in here does anyone in this class sleep on a futon? And Annie and I, we were the only ones that do. And the teacher was kind of like, really? Like,
yeah, she was surprised.
Yeah, she was like, you guys sleep on a futon?
Yeah, we were like, we didn't really choose it, but.
Yeah. So that made me curious too. So at work, I polled some of my coworkers.
Oh, yeah?
I only asked 3 people. And all 3 people said bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were like.
Did you ask like what their bed frame situation is like? Like, is it a fully raised?
No, we didn't get that in depth.
I wasn't
like, what's your bedroom situation like?
No, like, are they on a raised frame, like Western?
They must be, because one coworker specifically said that he sleeps in a bed, but his wife sleeps in a futon because they have a baby at home, and the wife sleeps with the baby, and they sleep on a futon because it's on the floor. And the baby can't roll out of bed.
Interesting.
So that's why
also
they use the futon.
Because I have heard that in a lot of Asian countries it's common for the parents to sleep with the baby.
Oh, really?
But in Western society, a lot of people tell you, like...
away. Cage it up.
No, they tell you don't sleep on it because you might roll over on it in your sleep.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, rare or not rare
Isn't that funny? That's probably like... Never mind. That's like probably like one, there's probably like a high profile story, and then we shut down baby co-sleeping. Yeah. But then there are other things that happen like frequently, and they're high profile cases, and we're just like, nah, whatever, like it's good.
Yeah.
But baby co-sleeping, we're like, no.
Yeah.
You don't sleep with that baby.
It is interesting what's like culturally acceptable and what gets you labeled as like a bad mom.
Because it's like the opposite here in Japan. Because I guess baby co-sleeping here is like, you just sleep on the floor with the baby because the baby can just roll out of bed.
Yeah.
Roll across the tatami.
What if you told your wife's coworker, I mean, you wouldn't, but like, if you told her that and then she'd be like, oh, you must not be a good mom. Like, you don't love your baby enough to sleep on a futon with it, I'd
be like, yeah, you're right. I just bought a new memory foam mattress.
On this mattress.
20 centimeters thick, 3 layers.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping on a futon. So I asked that coworker, and I think that was kind of the thing. Like, they have a futon in their house,
Yeah.
but they don't really
It's not.
sleep on it
Mhm.
unless you have a baby. And then another coworker said that when he was a kid, he can always remember beds were like so much cooler. And he said because it was like a Western thing, so you wanted a bed because that was like the modern Western
That's so funny.
thing. So he was like, yeah, I think most people sleep in beds. And he did say that he had a futon when he was in college because the room was so small.
Oh.
So he was like,
purely
since I was,
functional.
yeah, he was like, I was in like a dorm room. He's like, so I could roll up my futon and put it away, and then I would have like the whole room to do my
Yeah.
activities or whatever in.
Makes sense.
And then another coworker, I thought was really funny. He said that beds sound like a rich person thing, but he has a bed.
I mean, I guess if
And
you...
I don't know if he meant this because he mentioned space too. So I don't know if he
Okay.
was also like implying that, oh, if you have a bed, like,
You must have a bedroom.
yeah, you have like a bedroom that's just for like sleeping. Like that's pretty rich.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I guess if we were living in like Tokyo or somewhere where space was really tight, but
yeah. So no, it was just,
interesting.
yeah, very interesting. So just from polling my coworkers, it was 100% beds, but I think that it sounded like they all owned futons, but they didn't actively sleep in them every night. So yeah. And then there was a funny pronunciation mishap because I was saying futon, and I guess in Japanese fu and hu.
yeah,
Like,
it's
the
more like
fu
a
is
breathy,
often like a hu.
like a huton.
Yeah, so I was saying futon, and they were kind of like, "Whoa, like that's
Yeah, because I
aggressive."
guess it's like a borrowed word. So in English we have like f sound, but that is interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably brings us to the words of the week.
Yeah,
So
more
we
than
can-
enough rambling.
Yeah.
Well, I've been waiting to tell you. My
Yeah. What's your word? Let's hear it. I know you were so excited. You were so excited you didn't write it in the notes.
I didn't
'cause
write
you
it in
wanted
the
to be
notes.
such
I
a big
didn't-
surprise.
I didn't want you to look it up later. Okay, my word is Hashira. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, from Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Yeah, and so that's the Japanese title of Demon Slayer, which is currently the only anime that I'm up to date on because, like I said earlier, I haven't been a big anime fan, but I like that one so much that I might now need to change my mind and start watching a lot more anime. But if you haven't watched it, Hashira are like the pinnacle, the top swordsmen in the show. They're like the best demon slayers. And so I always assumed that Hashira meant like swordsman or like fighter, but it actually means pillar. Because when we were in a cafe, when I was in a cafe with my friends, they were talking about something and they were gesturing to like the literal pillar in the building, and I was like, I know that word Hashira, and it does literally mean pillar. And then when it's used in the context like that show, it's kind of like when in English we call someone like a pillar of society, because you can call someone they're like the support for a group
Yeah,
or
so I guess
family.
they're like the pillars of the demon slaying corps.
Which is so interesting because it does make sense, but I didn't think that word meant pillar. Because we watch it not dubbed but subbed, and so even though
because we're elitists.
no, I just couldn't think of the word for a second. But we watch it where they're speaking in Japanese, but we're reading English, and even in English it says Hashira. And it does that with a couple of Japanese words. I guess the translation just wouldn't really be the same. But that's why I didn't know what it meant in English, and I just assumed it was the name for like really good swordsman. But yeah, it means pillar.
Sword master.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's a fun fact if you watch that. Maybe you already knew that, but if you watch that anime too, that's what Hashira is.
Yeah, that's fun.
What's your word?
So my word is Yugen.
Yugen.
Yugen. Which, if you just look up Yugen, it'll probably pull up something about like Zen Buddhism, because I didn't know this. Apparently that Yugen is one of the three core components of like some kind of Zen thinking. But Yugen it kind of means like the beauty of the world, or it's something that is like, what do they say?
Like something that's like just a general indescribable.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's like something, it's almost like the English word sublime. It's supposed to be something
Oh.
that's like deep and immeasurable. It's like the beauty of the
Interesting.
world is Yugen.
Is it a thing, like a noun? I guess
I
it
guess
must
so.
be.
Yeah.
Like the Yugen of the world.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was just interesting because yeah, I was kind of thinking like, it got me on the theory, like, I think I've used Natsukashi before as my word, which is kind of like nostalgia, but apparently Natsukashi is like a deeper word, that it doesn't really have a translation to nostalgia. So,
That's
so yeah, I
kinda
was looking
cool.
up like something new, and I
Yeah.
found Yugen,
Hmm.
which is kind of the beauty of the world.
Oh, words are so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for listening to the end of this one. I guess-
Yeah, it's been a long one.
Yeah, got
So
a bit
thanks for
rambly.
following along.
Yeah, and next week we'll be doing the same thing, just chatting in this room.
Right back here talking about our mundane lives.
Yeah, and you can always email us, and maybe we'll read your email and get into a big rabbit hole.
Yeah, or tell Annie what anime to watch.
Yeah, you can do that too.
But
At
nothing
rambling,
too wild.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing too wild. I'm like a baby anime watcher.
Yeah.
The beginner anime watcher. I don't watch anime about babies.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, so ramblingramsbothams@gmail.com, and same for the website, ramblingramsbothams.com, and the Instagram, ramblingramsbothams.
There
See
we
you
are.
guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.